What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is an exciting week for Oxygen World. This is the public release of Automatic.css. I announced it yesterday, and we are doing a promo period that ends this Saturday, so you can get your hands on Automatic.css right now at Automatic.css.com. And this, by the way, is my utility class and variable framework for Oxygen, coming soon to Bricks and Zion and Gutenberg and WooCommerce and even non-WordPress websites. So very, very powerful stuff. And this is really cool because 7 months ago, I created my very first Oxygen tutorial on YouTube. It was called How to Set Up Oxygen Properly. And in that video, I introduced concepts like using clamps for automatically responsive typography, fluid responsive spacing across your website without any media queries, all by default. I went through how to set up your colors in Oxygen. We went through that entire global settings panel. And what's awesome is that here we are 7 months later, and none of that video is actually necessary anymore. Today, you can simply install Automatic.css on your Oxygen-powered website. Just add the plugin, and I'm going to show you how to do the setup here, but it's pretty much all set up for you. The setup now takes about 2 minutes max, and you are ready to rock and roll. So what I'm going to show you in this video is how to install the plugin, how to set it up, and then I'm actually going to build a very, very simple little landing page so that you can see the power of Automatic.css, because obviously it goes well beyond just setting up Oxygen. It gives you the full suite of utility classes and utility variables so that you can build websites faster, easier, and more consistent than ever before, which is super important, especially if you're an agency and you build lots of websites. You want that consistency to be there. So let's go ahead. I'm going to screen share. I've got this demo website set up. I'll just tell you what I've done so far. I installed Oxygen. I created a primary template. It doesn't have anything in it yet. It's just a header builder that's blank. It's a blank inner content element, and it's a blank footer. So there's really like a white page, basically. And I haven't even installed Automatic.css yet. Okay, there's some other plugins that I have just based on my blueprints, but none of that really matters. You don't need any of that stuff. What we're going to do is get started just by installing the Automatic.css plugin. So I'm going to go to Plugins, Add New, and I'm going to go to Upload. I'm going to grab the file from my desktop and drag it in and hit Install. Now, when you purchase the plugin, you are going to get a license key that gives you access to automatic updates and support as well in our private support community. Really not even just a support community. It's a private Automatic.css community. There's going to be a lot more stuff in there than just support. All right, so there we are. We're activated. If I go to Automatic.css plugin license, this is where you would put your license. You would click Activate. Then you would get all your automatic updates. And I am in the next version of this plugin, which is going to come out probably this week. This is going to move down to live right near Oxygen down here. For right now, it's just chilling up here at the top left. All right, so we're not actually going to go into the Automatic CSS dashboard quite yet. There's a little bit that we have to do inside of Oxygen before we can go to Automatic. All right, so what I'm going to do is go to Pages, All Pages, and I'm just going to open my front page, my home page with the Oxygen Builder. And while that loads, I'm also going to show you that at automatic.css.com, there is a cheat sheet that we've put together. And this cheat sheet allows you to see all of the classes and variables by category. So you have, if you want to see background colors or breakouts or buttons or flex and grid alignments or grids, grid order, grid spans, images, links, margin, like it's all there. It's all categorized for you. You can also choose whether you want to see both classes and variables, just classes, or just variables. And if you know you're searching for something in particular, you can just start typing and it will start to sort based on your search. So that is super, super valuable. Okay, so our builder should be up. What I'm going to do is go to the Manage Settings and Global Styles section of Oxygen, and we're going to talk about what needs to be set up here and what doesn't need to be set up here. First and foremost, colors. You do not have to set up any colors in the Oxygen builder. That's all going to be handled by Automatic.css. Fonts. You do have to set your fonts inside of Oxygen. Of course, in the future, this will change. We're going to be doing even custom font handling inside of Automatic.css. But for now, you just set your fonts like you always have done in Oxygen. Next is the heading section. This part is super important. Oxygen takes precedence over Automatic.css. So if you are setting global styles in Oxygen, they are going to be the preferred styles in your website, not Automatic.css. If you want Automatic.css to drive your website, which that's why you got it, you need to remove the default styling here from Oxygen, specifically the font sizes. All right, so what you're going to do is just clear these boxes out. Don't set them to 0. Just make sure they don't have any value whatsoever. So I'm going to do that for every single box there. Now with line height, you can go ahead and set your line height here. I'll set mine to 1.1 here and 1.1 here. I'll just do 1.1 down across the board. That's a pretty, standard line height for headings. And then you can set font weights here as well. Just make sure the font size box is cleared out and does not have any values. Next, we're going to do the body text, same exact thing. Just clear out the default font size. Then you can go back. For links, this is the only area where we actually have to input something. Now, in Automatic CSS, the primary color is your website's action color. So what we want to do here is use a variable, which is a hook into the Automatic.css system. And what we're going to do is use the primary color variable. So I'm going to type var and then open parentheses, _ primary. And then I'm going to copy that and I'm going to come down to the hover and I'm going to paste it, except the hover needs to have the hover variation. So I'm going to do -hover. So we have var primary and var primary hover. Those are hooking into the Automatic CSS system and grabbing your primary color and your primary hover shade. All right. If you know anything about Automatic.css, when you input your colors, it automatically generates a bunch of really useful shades. It generates a hover shade, an ultralight, a light, a medium, a dark, an ultra dark, and then of course you have your main color as well. And it does that for primary, secondary, accent, base, shade, and so on. Okay, so we're done here with the links. I'm just going to copy that because we also need to put that in the text link section. So I'm going to copy the exact same stuff, primary and primary hover, and then I'll just hit save, just to make sure we're not losing any work here, and I'll go back. All right, you can leave the link wrapper area blank, and then the button area, of course, is blank as well. You can set your button styles in Automatic.css. All right, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do width and breakpoints. So you can set your page width to whatever you want it to be, but you do need to take note of the number. So I'm going to put in 1280 for mine. All right, so 1280 pixels. You could put in 1400 if you wanted to. You could put in 1368 if you wanted to, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do 1280. And then we're going to go back. Again, just make note of that number because you're going to need it again in a minute. All right, next is sections and columns. Very easy here. Look, you just delete everything. Just make sure all of these boxes are empty. Okay, and that is it. Save. We are done with the Oxygen portion of your website setup. That is all you need to do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the admin. And we're going to now go explore the Automatic CSS dashboard. So when you first open the dashboard, you're going to be in the viewport tab right here, and you're going to see these two boxes. It's very important for you to understand. This is as you can see from the cheat sheet, right? This is a very extensive system. However, it works pretty much out of the box with very, very little setup. You see all these tabs, all these things that you can tweak and refine and customize. What I want you to know right off the bat is that none of those things are required to set up. The only thing that's required to set up are the viewport tab and the colors tab. All right. If you set up viewport and you set up colors, you can straight away go start building a website. All right, which is exactly what we're going to do. And then we're going to come back and talk about tweaks and refinements later. Literally, all of these areas are just for customizing the system to your exact look and feel that you want to achieve. But it's not required for the system to function and for you to start building the website. All right, so we have viewport and we have colors. Remember, in the Oxygen builder, in the global settings, we set our page width. I set it to 1280. You need to make sure the viewport max in Automatic.css says whatever number that was. The default is 1280, but if you had set it to 1400, this needs to be set to 1400. If you set it to 1168, this needs to be set to 1168. This is because Automatic.css uses your website's actual dimensions for all of the responsive typography, responsive spacing, auto grids. It is the most accurately responsive utility framework available for not just for Oxygen, but it's going to be for anything because it's based on your website's actual dimensions. All right. So we have 1280 in this box. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our colors tab. The colors tab just uses hex codes. So you take your hex code for your brand colors and you implement them in this dashboard simply by copying and pasting. Now, you could use the sliders, doing all this manual kind of color selection. But typically when you're about to build a website, you already know the color scheme. You already know the hex codes for the colors. So, excuse me, literally just copy them, paste them in here, and then hit save. And I'm about to do that right now. So I'm going to show you, this is a Figma file. I didn't create this. I just found this Figma file in the Figma community. And we're just going to kind of put this landing page together right here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just grab the hex code for this color right here. This is going to be, because it's the button color, it's going to be our primary color on the website. Now, thankfully, I kind of chose this landing page because it only really uses this color and two shades of that color. And so this will be a good chance for you guys to see the shade generation and how that works inside of Automatic.css. But I copied the hex code. I'm going to go into our dashboard. I'm going to paste it in, and then I'm going to hit save. Now, there's really no other colors on this website, so I don't have to do anything else. But if you had more colors, you would go ahead and implement them here. There's a secondary, there's an accent, there's a base, and then there's a shade, which is all of your grays. Okay, so it's white, black, and all of your gray variants. All right, so I'm going to hit save there. And like I mentioned just a minute ago, you see all these other tabs. You do not have to touch these, okay, until you're ready to do customizations and actually dial the system in. But first, what we're going to do is just going to go start building something. And I'm going to go nice and slow. This is not going to be like an advanced tutorial. I'll pretend that everybody watching this is a beginner, and we'll take this nice and slow. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Oxygen Templates. And I'm going to open the primary template, which I already told you at the beginning of the video is completely blank. All right, so I have opened the primary template here. I told you in the beginning I had more than I actually have. I just have an inner content module in there. So what we're going to do is add a header builder. And this is important because you need to understand how Automatic.css padding works with these different elements like the header builder differently from how it works with sections. And it's even different when it works with just standard divs, okay? So I have a header. Let's look at our little example here. So we just have this logo up here. Maybe I can export this real quick. So I'm going to just try to export this. Can we do it as an SVG? Thank you. Hopefully I even have like SVG support. All right, let's see if that actually did that correctly. Starter logo large, starter. Okay, well, it didn't really. All right, so I'll just bring in the icon. So I'm going to add an image. And I'm going to browse the media library, and we're going to throw this icon in there. Okay, good. It is accepting SVG files. Perfect. All right, and then I basically just have two links over here on the right-hand side. Those are just going to be text links. So I'm going to add a text link. And you're going to notice that when Automatic is installed, the header builder has no default padding in it because it's not pulling that from Oxygen anymore. So I'm going to show you exactly how we handle that. All right, so this is going to be GitHub and sign in. So we're going to say GitHub, and I'm going to duplicate this link, and this is going to be sign in. Perfect. All right. And then I'm going to go to the structure panel, and we're going to pull these text links over into row right. Okay. GitHub and sign in. Perfect. And then I'm going to make a custom class, and this is going to be called header __ link, just like that. And I'm going to show you how to hook into the Automatic CSS system using variables for this. So I'm going to go to advanced. Instead of doing like a margin left or a margin right on these, like using utility classes, I'm just going to use variables. So we want, because this is aligned to the right, we want all of our margins on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go to size and spacing, margin left. I'm going to set to none, and then I'm going to write a variable. It's going to be var space m. That's going to put a medium margin on the side of anything with the header link class. This needs the header link class as well. And now you see that it's applied. Now, how did I know that that was the variable? Well, if I went to the cheat sheet and I said, you know what, I need spacing. All right, so I'm going to go to the top here and I'm going to grab, I think it's under, it's under padding and margin and gap. So right now I need a margin, but it's all spacing, right? So I go to margin and I say, show me margin variables. And it's going to show you right there, var space m, s, xl, xs. These are your options. So you can literally copy it, come over, and if I grab my link again, go here. Let's pretend I didn't write anything in there. I could just paste it in, and I'm going to get the exact same effect. Now, I don't want it on this first one here, so I'm going to come down here and add a state, and I'm just going to say first of type. This is a little bit more advanced, isn't it? And I'm going to put a 0 on there. That way, the very first link will not have any left margin on it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit save just to save our work. Now, let's take a look at the header builder here. So we have our header builder, which is a module, and then inside of that, we have a header row. I want to select the header row, and I'm going to use a class from Automatic.css called pad header. And we have these pad header classes because of the way that these headings or these headers are structured in Oxygen. They need to be treated differently when it comes to padding. Sections need to be treated differently when it comes to padding, and then regular divs need to be treated differently when it comes to padding. So if you're padding a header, you use the pad header classes. It's pretty intuitive. So we're going to do pad header m, and I now have medium medium padding in my header. All right, we're going to go take a look at the front end, and there you go. Now, if we look at our kind of Figma here, these are actually gray links. But because in Oxygen, we set this up to inherit our primary color for link variables, we actually have to change this. So I'm going to hook into the system, and I'm going to hook into one of the shade variables because that is a dark gray right there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm still styling header link. I'm going to go typography, color, var, and we're going to do shade dark. And that's going to give us pretty much an exact match on text. The hover is going to stay our primary color by default, but I now have matched pretty much that text right there. So now if I refresh on the home page, we're exactly where we need to be. All of this, by the way, is automatically responsive. Of course, you can't really see anything yet, but we're getting there. So now I can, let's see if we need to do our footer. Let's see, what do we have for a footer? Okay, so we'll do our footer while we are here. So I'm going to go in to our primary, and we're going to take a look at our structure panel again. I'm going to add a section. I'm going to change that tag to footer. And then what I'm going to do, if we take a look at this, this is the primary color, but a very, very light shade of the primary color. So I know what I can do in Automatic is do BG for a background color, double dash, and I'm going to do primary ultra light. And it's going to give me that ultra light shade. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Excellent. Now, if that shade is not light enough, here's where we get into the customization of the plugin. Because you can see it's actually much lighter in the Figma file than it is right here. And this is ultra light. That means that's the lightest version that we have. So what I can do is we're going to go back to the admin, and we're going to go to Automatic.css, and we're going to go to the shades section because you can override the lightness value of every shade. So I'm going to go down to primary ultra light. Here's the primary ultra light. It is set at 95%. If I put that at 98%, it's going to get even lighter. So now what I can do is go to the very front, and there is, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is my footer, and it is now much lighter. In fact, it's almost an exact match for that lightness that's in the Figma file. So I have effectively changed that ultra light shade value, and I've dialed that color in to exactly what I'm looking for. Now I can go back to Oxygen, we'll go to templates, and we'll finish creating that footer. And now wherever I use that ultralight shade, it's going to have that new lightness value so that it's super consistent across the site. And if that lightness value ever needs to change, we'll be able to change it everywhere just from the Automatic.css dashboard without changing anything else. All right, so here I am back in the template. I'm going to go ahead and take a look here at starter. All right, so we have a logo. I'm not going to worry about all the social links and all of that stuff, but we will do the main stuff. So I'm going to add a center all class to the footer, because if you look at the file in Figma, everything is centered in that section. So might as well just center all. All right, I'm going to add an image. Notice that this section that I added has default spacing from Automatic.css. I did not set any spacing anywhere. It just knows we're using Automatic CSS now, so that's going to be default spacing. I'm going to hit browse. I'm going to grab my logo, and there it is. It's popped in. Okay. Next, I'm going to add a div, and that div is going to contain my footer links. So I'm going to go ahead and name this footer _ links wrapper, and we're going to set that to horizontal, middle, and center. And then I'm going to add a link. Okay, so we're going to go text link. Perfect. And then I can use pretty much the same class I used up there because they're styled exactly the same. So remember I did header link. Perfect. And it's called a header link, and I'm using it as a footer. Look, I would actually make a footer link one, but for the purposes of this tutorial, we're just trying to move a little quickly here. I don't want to bore you with every single detail, especially stuff that's not related to Automatic. So home, about, docs, and GitHub. We're going to put those in. Home, about, docs, and GitHub. Perfect. Now on this logo right here, see, I need some spacing between these two elements. I can just throw a margin bottom on there. So we'll do margin bottom M, and then I'll take a look, and that's pretty much perfect. Now I will do this little copyright string down here because that's going to give us a chance to see our extra small text. So now what I'm going to do is add just normal text. I'm going to copy that in. Let's just get rid of this powered with love by nonsense. And then what I'm going to do is I'll show you a margin top class. So we can opt to do margin top, and we might want to do like XL for this. And then we can do text S. That's going to be small text. So I'm going to do that, and there we are with small text. So I'm going to hit save, and now we look at it on the front end, and we have our footer. Okay, perfect. Everything's going nice and smooth. Now we need to hop out of our primary template here, and we need to go to our main page. This is going to be now creating our landing page. All right, so home, I'm going to edit with Oxygen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start building the landing page now. Before I start adding stuff, I do want to just reiterate, I really hardly did anything for setup, right? You didn't see me go through a bunch of menus in the Automatic dashboard trying to set things up. It's all set up for you pretty much from the start. Like I said, it's only tweaks and adjustments and refinements that you're worried about when you go back, just like I did with that shade value. That's really it. You can start building very, very quickly. So I'm going to add a new section here. This is going to be our hero. And if you look at that, it's got the same ultralight version of that primary color. So I'm just going to add a BG class again to this, BG primary ultralight. And you see it exactly matches the footer. Why wouldn't it, right? The variable change, the color change in the dashboard. So the class now inherits exactly the same everywhere you use it. Now let's see what we need to add. We need to add a heading, and we need to add a little text, and we need to add a button. So, and again, everything is centered. So why don't I just start with a center all? I'm going to pop that in. I'm going to go ahead and put my heading in. I'm going to go ahead and put my text in. I'm going to go ahead and put my button in. Okay, perfect. Now what I need to take a look at is the spacing here. All of this is pretty evenly spaced. Now I personally hate this kind of giant line height in headings, so I'm not going to worry about recreating that. But we will create this blue part of the heading, and we will style the button, and then the general spacing here, there's a couple ways we can handle that. I could put margin bottom classes on everything. I could put margin top classes. I could just come to the section and say owl M, and it will space everything out automatically using owl spacing, which is another concept that I introduced in a previous Oxygen tutorial. It is built into Automatic.css. So I did owl m, and I got medium spacing between every element. And that medium spacing, by the way, perfectly matches medium margin, medium padding, medium gaps and grids. Everything across the system is 100% uniform. And all of it follows a perfect mathematical scale, by the way, which we'll see when we go tweak some stuff in the dashboard in a little bit. All right, so let's see what this needs to say. The modern landing page for React developers. All right, so the modern landing page for, how about we do Oxygen developers? All right, we don't need no React nonsense. And that is 2 lines. So a good way to handle this, you can just pop a width class on. So we can try width M, that's a little bit too small. We can do width L, and that's perfect. And then I'm going to tweak, I'm going to leave it for right now, but I'm going to tweak the heading size here. We're actually going to go for bigger and bolder than what they have there, and I'll show you in a minute. So I'm just going to leave this width for right now, because when I adjust the heading size, everything's going to be perfect. Next, I'm going to grab this little line of text, and we're going to drop that in. And you can see in here, it's actually like a lighter shade of gray. So that's probably like a base medium. So I'm going to just go text base medium. And, oh, okay, my base isn't, let's do shade medium, because my base actually does have a color. So I'll do shade medium. Perfect. And that gives me that kind of light gray, which I don't like on this background color, but that's what they did. So I'm just going to mimic it. And then we have to take a look at our button. So button, we're just going to use our button primary class. So we're going to do button _ primary. Now I will show you this because we don't get a chance to, but if that was an outline button, you could also use the button outline class and transform it immediately into an outline button, which is super, super useful. But I'm going to go ahead and select our button and take off that button outline class. And then what does that button say? Download your free theme. Okay, so we're going to download your free theme. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Perfect. All right, so we do see that we need rounded corners on that. And that actually happens inside of the Automatic CSS dashboard. So I'm going to go back to admin. Now, just so I don't have to jump out of the builder and into the builder and all of that, I'm just going to do this and then show you on the front end. So if I go into buttons, you're going to see right here, we can do padding with buttons, top and bottom, left and right, border size, outline border size, and here's button radius. I'm going to go ahead and set a 1 rem on this because it looks like that's about what that is. And I'm going to hit save. And then on the front end, when we view the website, you're going to see that my buttons now have 1 rem of border radius. All of them are going to be like that. And if I did the outline button, again, outline, and hit save, I don't want to get off on too many tangents here. The outline button would have the same, it would inherit the same border radius. Again, so that everything is super consistent, pretty much automatically for you across the board. You're not going to see that radius in the builder until I refresh the builder. So we're just going to leave it for now. Next, I'm going to add a new section below, and you're going to see that we have these flip-flopping little kind of grids here. We are going to use grid to accomplish that. And I'm also going to show you how to change the order very easily on mobile using Automatic.css. But the first thing I want to do, just so there's some variance, because this section and this section are like have the same padding, I want to make that hero section have extra padding. So it's more like a hero. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do pad section. Remember we did pad header. Now we're doing pad section, and we're going to do L. And that's going to give us much bigger header padding for our hero section. Not header padding, sorry. Hero padding for this hero section. All right, now I'm going to come down, and we're basically going to do a centered text. Okay, so I can actually do the center all class again. So I'm going to grab this here, center _ all, and I'm going to add a heading. And this is going to be a H2 heading. So there's my heading. I'm going to make it an H2, and then there's a little bit of text underneath it. Perfect. And it's just going to say your title here and then lorem ipsum. So let me just grab this real quick. Come over. Perfect. Okay. Pop that in there. And then this says your heading goes here, something like that. And again, I'm just going to put a margin bottom class on here. We'll do an S this time. And with this, I'll do a width L. Okay. And if you've watched my max width tutorial on sculpting text and elements with max width classes, That's exactly what we're doing right now. Now I'm going to add a div. This is going to be for our grid. Notice this is a 2-column grid. Let me go ahead and grab this image right here while we're here and move my little window out of the way. Export. We'll just do a, well, let's see if we can do an SVG. Can we get away with an SVG? All right, feature 1 SVG, save to the desktop. That's good. All right, we'll just keep this. So it's going to be content on the left, image on the right, image on the left, content on the right, and it's going to degrade like that. So content left, image right is our first one. All right, so I have my empty div. I'm going to go ahead and assign a margin to the top of this, and that's going to be a, let's try an XL. And then I am going to put a grid class on of 2. So it's grid 2 for 2 columns. There we go. And then I am going to put a gap on there of L. So that's going to give us an L-sized gap. I'm going to add a div, if it'll let me get into the box, div, and duplicate. There we go. So text on the left, remember that. So I'm going to add a heading. I'm going to add text. Perfect. And I'm just going to center all of this because that's how it is in the design. And I am going to add a margin to the bottom of this of M. Yeah. And then we'll do this. And then this also needs to be, oh, it's copying styling from Figma. That's no good. All right, so let's delete that. And text. Perfect. And then I'll paste that in there so we don't carry over any styling. Okay, good. So this needs to be like an H3 now. So I'm going to go back to our selector here and change that to an H3. And they've actually have that very small on there. So instead, it really needs for HTML structure, proper structure, it needs to be an H3, but their H3s are very small in here. So we're going to call this a feature H3, all right, or a feature heading. So I'm going to make a custom class, and I'm going to do feature heading like that. Or I can do H double dash featured. I do that a lot of times. So we'll do H or H feature. So I'll do H double dash feature. And then I'm going to go to typography, font size, none, because what am I going to do? I have to hook into the Automatic.css system. I don't want to go making up a new font size in pixels or rims, or I want it to be automatically responsive. I want it to have its fallbacks in place, everything. I want it to be super consistent with all the other sizes in the system. I'm just going to go var text, and then we're going to try L. We could also try M, and we're just going to see which one. Like that's definitely like right on the money for M. And we'll just say feature heading. And then that text probably needs to be smaller as well. So we're going to go with feature text, or we'll do text double dash feature. And then we can, again, hook in. We'll hook into the small text size this time. Okay, perfect. All right. And then what we want to do is their website width is obviously much different than ours. But I'm going to go ahead and just add a padding class to this. And we'll do pad L to that div. Perfect. Okay, let's try to throw in my image. I keep moving my screen all around. Image. And we're going to browse. And we're going to go to the desktop. And hopefully it brought in. Yes, it did. Perfect. Okay, there we are. And again, I can center this. I'm also going to, you know what I might do instead of the padding here? Because these grids are just way wider because my website width is wider than that Figma one. We are going to put a width class on here. So we're just going to do width L and bring that in. It's a little bit better. Okay. I'm also going to, on this div with my grid, put a stretch class. And that's going to make sure that these things can be in alignment with each other. Okay. So what we have now is our text over here. We have our image over here. If we look at our Figma, the only difference is they are much more spaced out, right? So I can actually go from width L to width XL. And then what I'm going to do is center here, center all. So what I can do is use padding. So we'll do pad and we'll do, let's try L again. Okay, save. Let's view on the front end. Okay, so there's our hero. And then we come down and we see text on the left, image on the right, fairly big gap there. Yep, almost matches exactly. We're looking really good here. So now what I need to do is basically duplicate what I've accomplished here. And I need to flip-flop these. So I'm going to go into the structure panel. I'm going to open this out, and I'm going to just flip-flop those divs. So now I have them staggered the way they were before. Now I can duplicate this, and I can drag that below our, let me minimize that. Let me drag that below our other one. Nope, not out. Oxygen, I want it. No, not in there either. Good old oxygen. All right, so there we go. That should be the proper ordering. So I now have 3 rows of 2 columns, and the only thing I need to do now is this image and this image on mobile need to swap places with the text so that they stack first. It should be image, text, image, text, image, text. So that happens to be super easy inside of Oxygen, and I'll show, or with Automatic.css. So what I'm going to show you is, first, if we look at it right now, number 1, we don't have a responsive grid yet because we have a couple more classes to add. And number 2, once we have that, let's do that first, and then I'll show you the stacking problem. So I'm going to grab that div, and I'm going to say on mobile, on M devices, the M device size, I want 1 column. So I'm going to do grid M1. And then I'm going to come down to this one, same thing, grid M1. This is going to make sure that on the M device size, we only have 1 column, grid M1. Now when we look at it, this is the M device size right here. We can see that it's a now responsive grid, and this is the problem I was alluding to. When you don't change the order of your graphics, you'll end up with text graphic, graphic text, text graphic, graphic text. We want graphic text, graphic text, graphic text. All right, so very simple. I grab the div that this image is in. That's the grid cell, right? I want that to be ordered first, but I don't want it to be ordered first everywhere, because that defeats the purpose of staggering them. I only want it to be ordered first on M devices when that grid collapses and stacks. So what I can do, order _first-M is going to give me the first order position at the M breakpoint. And so I select that on that one. I'm going to come down here and grab the div, and I'm going to add the same thing, order _first-M. And you could literally go to the cheat sheet and say, I want to change the order of something. And here, let me clear these out so we're not actually searching anything. And I say, how do I order things? You type in the word order, and there is all of your order classes. And it tells you exactly what each class does. So if you were like, hey, can I order things in Automatic.css? Well, you go to the cheat sheet, and it shows you exactly what you can do with the order classes. All right, perfect. So let's save. And now let's view on mobile at that M breakpoint, and look what we have. Graphic, text, graphic, text, graphic, text. You don't have to know how to do grid. You don't have to know how to order things in grids. You just apply the classes and you're done. All right, so what else do we have to do in this Figma? Oh, one more thing left. So we're just going to do this little call to action down here. And let's just build that with all custom classes so that you get a chance to see more about the hooks in this system. So I'm going to add a div. And we're going to call this CTA box. Yeah, let's just do CTA box. All right, perfect. So for the width, let's do a variable hook. Let's do var, and we'll do width XL, just like that. Okay, it's going to give us that XL width. For our background color, we're going to do primary ultralight. And let's see, that one's actually a little darker. So we're going to do light. Okay, and that may be too dark, right? So this light value is actually too dark. Well, we know how to tweak the system, right? So we go back to the dashboard, we go to shades, here's our primary light. So I need it to be lighter than 85%, which means I probably need to go somewhere in the neighborhood of 92. My ultralight is 98. I'm going to try 92 with this primary. Let's go ahead and hit save. And I need to put something in there real quick, or else you're not going to be able to see it. So we'll just throw a heading in there and hit save, and we'll come see on the front end. Okay, so it actually did get lighter. Let's see if we can make it even lighter than it is. So primary lightness, let's go 95%, save changes. And let's take a look. Okay, that's much better. So it's not quite as light as the footer, but it is lighter here. And actually, that's still a little too much. I need to go like 94%. This is literally how much you can dial this system in to get exactly what you're going for. That's perfect, I think. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, let's take a look at the design. That heading is going to be like a very small heading, so we're going to have to do that again. And it actually might be it's pretty much same size as the feature heading. So it's 20, It's a little bit bigger than the feature heading. Okay, so we'll make a new one. So we'll call this CTA box _ heading. And then for the font size, we'll come into none again, and we'll do var text, and we'll try M. Okay, perfect. What did I use on this one? Just want to make sure. Okay, I used M on that one. We can use L on this one. Perfect. All right. And what does it say? Anything? No, it's just lorem ipsum nonsense. All right, so I'll just say CTA box heading, and then we're going to use text here as well. And we're going to say, I'll just copy this. Okay, perfect. And I think it's only one line of text. It's start your free trial. It's a link. It's not even text. Okay, let's delete that, and we'll go text link. Perfect. And we'll make this a start your free trial. Okay, and then we'll take a look there. Perfect. All right, and it's gonna look better when we can actually see the proper lightness in the builder. The link's not gonna blend so much because we changed. Yeah, so we're perfect there. All right, now we're gonna tackle the padding on this box. If we look at it, it's got like medium-ish padding. It might be large padding. We'll see. So what I'm going to do is go to size and spacing padding, set that to none, and we're going to do var space. We'll start with M and see how that is, and I'm going to apply all to apply that variable to every side, and then we'll take a look there. That's almost perfect. Then what I'm going to do, it pretty much is perfect. I'm going to go to borders, and on our radius, we're going to hook into the radius system in Automatic.css. So I'm going to do var radius M. It's going to give us that medium border radius. And that's looking really good. All I need to do is add some margin here. So we're going to do margin bottom. And this is probably going to be S or XS. We'll just do S because that looks pretty good. And then we need to float a button over there to the right-hand side. So I'm thinking about the best way to do this. I think, again, we could just show you grids. So we'll turn this into a grid 2. And you can even do let's do a 1-3 maybe, or 3-1 is what it would be. So 3-1. So a much bigger left-hand side and a much smaller right-hand side to that grid. And then we just need to put things in divs to contain them better. So I'm going to add 2 divs. And then I'm going to drag in my heading to the first div. And I'm going to open that up because it makes it easier to drag and drop. I'm going to drop that there. And then in my side div over here, I can add my button. And then that is going to be a primary button. So button primary, and then it says get started. Perfect. And then what I can do if I want that to take up the full width is I can do width _full, and that's going to do, it's going to take up all that available space. Okay. Now I'm going to hit save. Let's take a look at what we've got. This is actually too much spacing here. So instead of S, I just do bottom XS. All right, perfect. Save. Now gotta remember, don't forget here on this, we have to make it responsive because we added the grid class to it, right? So on L breakpoints maybe, or maybe still on M. Now let's do L. Let's do grid L1. So on the L breakpoint, we want it to go down to 1 column, okay? Oh, and we need to check what do we got going on here. With our width. Okay, so let's do this. CTA box. I put that variable I made a mistake. I put that variable, my width variable, in the width box. We don't want to do that. You don't ever want to do that. You want to put that in the max width box. Okay, now I hit save. That way, we're not going to have the breakage on, as you can see now. It works perfectly. So yeah, don't make stupid basic beginner errors and you'll be okay. All right, and then I'm going to add a margin to the top of that. So we're just going to use another space variable. We're going to do space, and then we'll do L to move that away. And let's do XL, because I think that's what we did up here on these. Let's check. Yep, margin top XL. So use that on that, and it will match perfectly. Let's go ahead and save and take a look on our front end. Perfect. All right, so we've got basically the page built. It should automatically, everything should be responsive. Looks nice, looks very nice. Okay, so now, only thing there is we don't have a gap on that, which is why they're touching. So I'm gonna go back to my grid, and I'm just gonna say gap of L. Really, we can get away with an M there. So I'll do gap M. All right, save. Now that'll look better on mobile. Okay, now let's take a look at what you can actually do in terms of customization inside the system. So I'm going to go back to admin here. We're going to leave our front end up. Remember I said I wanted a larger heading here, and you have to decide, do I just want larger H1s, or do I want everything to scale larger as they go between sizes? And we're just going to play around at this point just to show you, not to achieve a look. We already achieved the exact look we're going for, but just to play around and show you what some of the settings do inside the dashboard. So I'm going to go into Automatic.css. And I'm going to go to my colors just to show you if I changed my primary color. The client comes along and they're like, hey, that primary color, we're not liking that so much. We actually want to do more of a purple, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and select like a nice purple color here. Maybe this one. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save Changes. And let's just take a look at what happens to our website on the front end. Now, obviously, these are images, so those are not going to change color. But everywhere I use the colors in the Automatic CSS system, it rethemed my website by changing one thing, because this lightness color is based on that primary color, right? So everything still looks really good, except for these images, which obviously, we're not magically changing the colors of images. But everywhere I use that original color, it still looks perfect here. If I said, no, we really need something else, maybe in the neighborhood of a teal, like let's go, or like a aqua, something like this. So I'll hit Save Changes. It's going to retheme again my website, and it's going to look just fine because of the way that we handle the shading values and how they're all grouped into families, right? Very, very nice. All right, so I actually like that purple a lot. I don't know if I can get back to where I was. Okay, that's probably it. All right, let's take a look. Now let's play with typography. Oh, also, let's go ahead and jump in here. I can show you how else you can tie in your typography, because notice, and I mentioned this a minute ago, they put this like gray color on the light blue. Oh, we didn't do this either, the colored heading text. Let's handle that. Okay, so instead of having black text on this background, one way to tie this in is you can use the ultra dark versions for this text. So I can do text double dash primary ultra dark, and now it's going to inherit that color, but the very dark version. So it's no longer just boring black sitting on here. It's a color that's actually part of this family. And then I could also do that here where we did text, and I just did ultra dark, so I'll just do primary dark for this one. And oh, you know what I did? I added a shade medium before. So there we go. So now I'm going to hit save, and I'll go back to the front end. And now this is much like more tied together to that color family. And you could do that all throughout the website if you want to. And that's going to make things really cool as well. And then when you retheme them, it's all going to work perfectly as you would expect. Okay, so now what I need to do is for Oxygen developers, we're going to add a span to that. So I just highlight, add a span, and then I'm going to add a text primary class. And that's automatically going to make my text that color so it stands out. There you go. Look how easy this is, right? It's so easy. Let's take a look at text sizing now. So I'm going to go to, we already looked at how you can adjust shades. I'm going to go into the typography tab. And I'm going to show you how these base text sizes work. I'm going to show you how the mathematical scales work. And that's pretty much all we'll take a look at there, because I don't want to get too in-depth in all of this. But let's take a look at this. 18 pixels on desktop, 16 pixels on mobile. If you prefer smaller text on mobile, let me go to Inspector so we don't have to keep resizing my browser. And we bring this in, right? Let's say that you prefer tighter text sizes on mobile. You kind of want to take everything the way that it is and shrink it a little bit on mobile devices. No problem whatsoever. We're going to change this base text mobile size from 16 to 14. No, definitely not 14, 16. We're going to change it to 14 pixels. And now we're going to refresh. And now everything is a little bit smaller on mobile devices. It didn't change anything on the desktop. Okay, so everything looks the way that it did on the desktop, but as we shrink in, everything gets a little bit smaller on mobile devices. Okay, now let's take a look at how the scales work. I can hop out of this mobile responsiveness here. And that was a very small adjustment, right? It's a 2-pixel adjustment between in the responsiveness. But if you actually did the inspector and the calculate and see the calculated versions of each of those texts compared to what they were before, you would see that they were a little bit smaller. All right, so now what I'm going to do is change the scale. So we're going to come down here to typography scale. And you notice that we have a bunch of preset mathematical scales in there. You can set your own custom scale if you want, but I'm going to show you what these scales do. So the scales change the variance between sizes. So with text and headings, we have 6 different levels. So you have your H6, H5, H4, H3, H2, H1. The variance, the degree of change between those sizes is controlled by the mathematical scale. So if we want less variance, if we want a tighter scale, if we want the headings to more closely match each other, you use a smaller scale. Like I'm going to change to minor third. And I'm going to hit save. And now what you're going to notice is the H1s and H2s are much closer together in size. So I'm going to refresh. And so this is the H1 got smaller. Okay, I paused for a second because I just figured out why this H2 was not behaving before. It was still had a value in the Oxygen default settings. I thought I cleared it out. I thought you watched me clear it out. Apparently I skipped that one. So that one was not behaving. So I have cleared that style out, and now we can go back to our front end. Okay, so I want you to see when I inspect this, this gets a little technical, but I'm going to go to the computed size. This computed size is 31 pixels. That's the H1. And now I'm going to look at the computed size here. That is 25.92. They're not very far off because I chose a very tight scale. Okay, now watch what happens on the other end when I choose a much larger scale. I'm going to actually shrink this down a little bit so we have more screen real estate. All right, so now I'm going to come down to my scales, typography scale. I'm going to choose golden ratio, 1.6, the largest preset scale that there is. I'm going to hit save changes, and I'm going to come over here, refresh, and now you see I have gigantic text, much bigger variance between the heading sizes. And let's check out the computed size now. So I'm going to inspect. And the reason this is breaking is because I put a width on there to constrain it, right? If I took the width off, it would look just fine. And then this is a span, which gets inline block by default in Oxygen. There's a bunch of ways you can finagle this. But again, I'm just showing you certain things. We're not making a perfect website right now. All right, so this H1 is computing to 76 pixels now. And this one is computing to 47 pixels now. So they both got bigger and the variance between them got bigger. But what you do notice is that your normal body text did not change because that is the reference size, okay? So your body text only changes when you change your base body text in Automatic.css, exactly what you would expect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that scale away. We're going to go back to like perfect fourth. Actually, no, let's not do that. I want to show you something because if you use a very extreme mathematical scale like this, you're going to have those extreme issues on mobile as well, unless you're using Automatic, which automatically adjusts for that. But let me go back and show you what I mean. There's a mobile typography scale. I have golden ratio set on desktop. If I set golden ratio on mobile and I hit save, now they're the same scale. You're going to have some problems on mobile. See that? Like they're still very, very large on mobile. It's still changing size. It's still responsive, but the scale is not appropriate for mobile. Well, we already know that in Automatic. So by default, our mobile typography scale is set down here. I think it's like 1.2 or 1.25. So if I do 1.2 for mobile, I can have those very extreme sizes on desktop, but everything still looks great when I get down to mobile devices. That's how it handles things for you automatically. All right, so that's how the scale works. Now, what if you wanted to adjust the sizes of everything in general? Well, that's where your base size comes into play. So if I choose a much more appropriate, or let's do a tighter scale. So we'll do major third, and then I'll keep minor third on mobile and save. Let's go back and take a look at what we've got. That's what we've got. I want everything to just get bigger, but I don't want the variance between sizes to get bigger. I just want everything to get uniformly bigger. All right, so what I can do is change my base size from 18 to 20, save, and now everything is going to get uniformly bigger. My body text got bigger, my headings got bigger, but the variance between them stayed on the same mathematical scale. So you have multiple ways to tweak and dial in this system to your exact needs. You can also come down here and simply override the heading sizes. So let's say I wanted my perfect fourth scale. I want 18 as my base text size. I'm going to hit save. We'll get us back to where we were. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to override my H1s. So down here at XXL, text size on mobile and desktop, I'm going to say, all right, on mobile, I want my H1s to be 3.2 rem, which is 32 pixels in this framework. And then at the top end, I want it to be huge. I want it to be like 7.8. It's like 78 pixels. So I'm going to hit save. And then we're going to go back and we're going to refresh. And I have giant H1 headings, but all my other text has been preserved exactly the way that it was. So that's another way that you can customize that system. I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. And let's talk about the rems versus pixels kind of debate. This root font size box is very, very important. The root font size, this is the only framework that allows you to choose your own root font size. Most frameworks lock you into either 62.5% or 100%. This allows you to choose between the two. If you choose 62.5%, then one rem will equal 10 pixels. So if you have a design and you say, I need 16 pixels, it's 1.6 rem. It's very easy. If you need a width of 1280 pixels, it's 128 rem. Makes the math very easy. If you don't prefer that, or if you have an existing website where things were built with rem and you don't want the design to get messed up, you need to change this to 100%, save changes. We look on the front end, nothing will change. Okay, well, I took away my custom H1 heading. So things did change, but not because of the scale. But as you see, everything still works. And now one rem will equal 16 pixels instead of one rem equaling 10 pixels. But nothing breaks. The entire system recalculates to fit the new root font size. And again, this is one of the only systems, like I'll show you. We go 62.5, change it back, hit save changes. You will not see any changes on the front end. But if you started using rem values for certain things, you would see changes between them. One rem would equal 10 pixels now instead of equaling 16 pixels. All right, so let's take a look at what else we have. Spacing. Remember that hero and this section here? I put extra spacing into the hero with the L spacing. Spacing in Automatic also follows a mathematical scale. Let me get out of this, out of that preview. Thank you. Can I get out of the preview? Thank you. Okay, so I'll refresh here. So let's say we want to dial in our spacing better. Maybe we want this normal default section spacing to actually be a little tighter, and we want these to actually be bigger. We want more variance between the sizes, or maybe even less variance between the sizes. Let's take a look at how we can dial that in. So in our spacing section, if you want less default padding in here, then you can change the base spacing section on desktop. So right now it's set to 4 base section spacing. I'm going to set that to 3, hit save, and we'll go to the front end and see what happens. Watch the spacing change on both of these. Okay, so the spacing got tighter. Now that's on desktop. You also have control over the base section spacing on mobile. So if I wanted it to be even tighter on mobile, I would set it to 2 on mobile. And now when I save, the sections will be even tighter. Let me refresh and let me inspect. And let me go to mobile and we'll scale down. So now the section spacing gets even tighter on mobile. I'll show you what would happen if we went really big with that. So we go to like 5, let's do like 6 and 5 for our base and hit save. And now I'll just refresh here. Look at the spacing is now there's much more breathing room. So if you love white space, then you would want to set higher values. If you like everything to be tighter, let's show you super tight now. So we bring down the base to let's say 3 or 2 even, and do like 1 here. We'll just kind of do an extreme. And then I'll refresh. Look how tight everything got with the section spacing. And then as I go to desktop, it still looks good, but it's definitely tighter. So you can dial that in to exactly what you need. And I'm going to put that back to 3 and 2, or actually I think it was 4 and 3 is our default. All right, the next thing we can look at is the spacing scale, which is just like the typography scale. So all the spacing follows that mathematical scale. and you have your values right here. And I'm going to implement the same drop downs that we have in the next release. But you can control the spacing scale on desktop separately from on mobile. So watch if I put a big value in here for our spacing scale, like 3, hit save, come to our front end. Oh boy, right? Big variance between sections, and then the bigs got bigger, the smalls got smaller. Okay, that's how the scale works. If I wanted it to be super tight, I come down here to spacing scale. Instead of 3, we're going to do like 1.25. I think that's a good value. And then we can do 1.1 there. No, it's 1.3 I got to go with. Okay, save changes. Perfect. Now I refresh. There you go. So it's tightened up the scale. There's less variance in that large padding up here, and then the standard default padding, which is right below it. So you can play around with the scales. You can play around with the base spacing. Let me set that back. It was 1.5 and 1.3, I think. Save. Good. Okay. And then, of course, you can change the spacing evenly altogether, smaller or bigger if you want to. And that's going to change your margins, going to change your patterns, going to change your gaps, going to change everything uniformly will change across your website so that it all maintains that ultra consistency. All right, so that's all we're going to look at in spacing. In buttons, you have a lot of, I'm not going to go through all of this. You have a lot of options in terms of buttons. We already saw how to add button radius. You can override the text color, the background colors, the hover colors, the border colors for every single button that's in the system, including the outline buttons. All of that is available to you. When I say it's the most flexible and customizable system, I really mean it's the most flexible and customizable system. Same thing with your border radius. You have a radius, a mathematical radius scale for the radius sizes. And then your fallbacks, which you don't ever have to touch. And you can read more about those. But Automatic.css has a dual layer fallback system. So browsers that don't support clamp functions, we go to calc functions. You won't notice any difference between them. So unlike other systems, which, hey, if it doesn't support clamp, let's just use rims. No. We put an intermediate fallback layer in for calc that makes sure that your website design, the way that the look and feel that you dialed in, doesn't change even when browsers don't support clamp functions. It moves to a calc that almost matches perfectly. Then if it doesn't support clamp or calc, that's when we move to pure rem values. But Automatic.css works with a wide range of browsers. It's going to work on Safari. It's going to work on older versions. Things aren't going to break, okay? And we're continuing to dial in more and more fallback support for all different aspects of the system. But your spacing, your typography, all of that stuff, colors, all of that stuff is automatically has those fallbacks in place for all the older systems. That is a complete overview of Automatic.css. Not a complete, it's a complete overview. It's not a complete deep dive into the system. This is so powerful. And like I said, it's coming to Bricks. It's coming to Zion. It's coming to Gutenberg. It's coming to WooCommerce. It's coming to non-WordPress websites. We really think that this has the potential to become the premier utility class and utility variable framework for WordPress, for Oxygen, definitely, for Bricks and Zion, these alternative builders, for WooCommerce, and then hopefully it makes some really big waves outside of the WordPress world as well, because you're going to be able to use this system on non-WordPress websites. If you have any questions, drop them down below. Of course, we're going to be releasing much more videos. I've got tons of tutorials in the inner circle. The Automatic.css community is going to have tons of tutorials inside of it. So I would highly recommend you buy in to this framework. You start using it. Once you use it, and I've heard this from many people, once you use it, you don't want to go back to anything else. It's just that simple. Once you really use it and understand it, you cannot live without it. So that's it. I'm out. I'll see you guys in the comments and hopefully in the Automatic.css community. Peace.